Hello, my name is Charles Alexander, and the topic that I have chosen to go over today is going to be distributed denial of service attacks. So what is it? Well, first, to understand what a distributed DOS attack is, it helps to understand first what a denial of service in the first place is. And what this is whenever an attacker will send an overwhelming amount of traffic and fake requests to a target host. So many fake requests that this target will eventually become overwhelmed and crash, thereby denying real users access to the server, which is where the whole term denial of service comes from. So distributed denial of service, what this is, it's very similar to a regular denial of service, except that a distributed denial of service is a large-scale version of a denial of service attack, where the attacker uses multiple IP addresses to carry out his or her attack. The attacker then uses these IP addresses to then flood the target with a superfluous request in an attempt to overflow the system, blocking legitimate traffic from getting through. And to kind of put a picture in your head about the way to think about this is kind of imagine a group of people standing in front of a door. You could imagine that once these people crowd the door, it'd be very hard for people that actually need to get through. And here we can see that a single attacker takes control of multiple IP addresses and takes control of the devices within these IP addresses and uses these uses the processing power within these devices to send an overwhelming amount of traffic to the host. Each of these devices make up a part of the botnet, and each of the devices within the botnet are called zombies. Once the attacker has control of these devices, it'll use the internet to send these fake requests to the target. The goal of sending all of these requests is to block out other legitimate requests from getting to the server, thereby denying service to real users. By using multiple devices, the attacker is not only able to utilize the power of these devices, but it also makes it much more difficult to simply stop the attacker by blocking out a single source. So there's kind of two reasons why an attacker would want to use a distributed approach to this kind of attack. And just an example in fairly recent history, through an example of a successful attack occurred on December 25th, 2014 by a group called Lizard Squad. This group targeted the gaming servers of Sony and Microsoft. They were able to successfully overwhelm the servers, rendering gaming servers useless for several days. This denial of service affected millions of people around the world, myself included. This attack cost Microsoft and Sony millions of dollars in goodwill with fans. The Lizard Squad message, and essentially the reason behind this attack, was to show the lack of security behind these servers. That customers were, paying, a yearly fee to, have access to. So, and this was the first time that I had personally heard of a distributed denial of service attack. And the purpose of a distributed denial of service attack can vary, but the overall goal of a distributed denial of service attack is to overwhelm and shut down a server, denying legitimate users from using that server. The reason why attackers use a distributed approach is to increase the magnitude of the attack and to make it harder to stop. The overall purpose behind these attacks may differ. For example, with the Lizard Squad attacks, their purpose was to expose the faulty security behind Sony and Microsoft servers. Some other reasons for launching a distributed denial of service attack may include to disrupt normal business operations, extortion, the threat of a potential denial of service attack unless a payment is made, punishment for undesirable actions, expression of anger or criticism, distraction, sometimes to distract the company from a potentially greater threat that the attackers may be under way with, and sometimes there's no reason at all. Sometimes these people just like to do it for fun. How does a distributed denial of service attack work? As mentioned before, an attacker launches a DDoS attack by taking control of multiple, sometimes thousands of computers. Once these computers are under the attacker's control, The attacker can then utilize the processing power of these computers to send an overwhelming amount of unwanted traffic to the target. So much traffic that the server ceases to operate and goes down, denying legitimate user service. For an attacker to gain control of multiple computers, the attacker will spread malicious software, mainly through infected emails. Once the software is inside, the computer is then a part of the botnet and is under control of the attacker. At this point, they are considered zombies. The attacker can now send a superfluous traffic to the target, consuming up the bandwidth and slowing operations. If the amount of traffic becomes large enough, the server will crash. The attacker also uses IP spoofing to stay undetected. How to prevent a distributed denial of service attack? There are many ways to prevent a DDoS attack. To make these solutions more effective, the following should be done. Configure your web server to defend against its distributed denial of service attacks. Alter the ISP firewall to allow only legitimate traffic to come through. Alter a firewall to defend against SYN flood attacks, which can be done using cookies. Move public resources to another source. Move all business critical data to cloud services. Another way to detect and prevent DDoS is to use AI to establish a baseline for normal activity levels within networks. Anytime the network sees activity outside of these levels, a flag would be raised. The installation of anti-DDoS software should also be installed and updated regularly by companies for maximum protection. So to summarize what we've learned today, distributed denial of service is a wide-scale denial of service attack to overwhelm the server and deny service to legitimate users. This is done by taking control of several computers and using the power of these computers to send fake traffic to target victims in order to shut down their servers. There are many ways to defend against and mitigate these attacks, some of which may include configuring your web server to filter between fake and legitimate requests and backing up your data to protect servers. Thank you.